It's totally fun. I have a lot more stories.
That you do.
Yeah.
That you do.
Guilty as charged with the stories.
Hey, everybody. Welcome once again to I've Got Something to Say, your new favorite podcast. This is the podcast where I tell stories about stuff that has happened to me in my life, and you get to listen to it. This week's edition is called I Just Blew My Main Vein. I've had an issue with needles all of my life. And I know nobody likes needles, but my very first memory of a needle, I remember being at my doctor's office. His name was Dr. Mangles, which is a horrible name for a doctor. And his nurse, Jerry, was going to give me a shot. And I remember sitting on the little table, and Jerry goes, "Oh, Chris, this is going to be just like a little bumblebee." And she's got the needle, the syringe in her hand, and she's going, "Zzzz." And I'm thinking, oh, this is fun. We're playing a little game. It's like a bumblebee. And then she stuck me in the arm with the needle. And it was kind of that delayed reaction that Will Ferrell and Elf had when they stuck his finger in the doctor's office, and he was just quiet with this frozen look of terror and pain on his face. And ever since then, I've had issues. In high school, you may remember, Paul, I was the Student and Community Concerns Chairman in our junior year.
You cared about
Truman
people.
High School. I did. I cared about students and the community.
True.
I was very concerned. And that meant I got to organize the blood drive. So I organized the whole thing. We brought in the community blood bank. They set up in the gym. And as the person that organized the whole thing, I got to do like the ceremonial first bloodletting. So they took me out in the middle, and they shoved the needle in my vein, and it started out okay, but then I started seeing lights, and things got real dim, and the next thing I knew, my head was shoved between my knees, and I had a cold compress on my neck, totally passed out. I've just not had good luck with needles. Now, I've tried to give blood 2 times since then. Both times, I passed out. So I finally gave up, and it's really unfortunate because I'm O negative, which is the universal donor. That means anybody, if they're okay with syphilis and chlamydia, can use my blood. I'm kidding about that part, but I am the universal donor. Anybody can use my blood, and it's too bad that I've just not been able to give it. Now, fortunately, up until just recently, I've been okay. Not with like giving blood, but just having blood taken for like your annual physical. So I just had my annual physical a couple of weeks ago, and the doctor gave me the lab sheet of what blood he wanted drawn. So I went to the clinic on the campus of the corporation where I work, and I went in a week ago on Monday, and I was a little hesitant at first. The lady that came out and met me, she said, "Hey, I'm the office manager. Now, both of the nurses are busy right now, but I used to be a pediatric nurse, so I'm sure I can do this." 2 red flags. One, I used to be a nurse. Okay. She's not doing it anymore. She's in management. And let me tell you, as someone in management, I know once they put you in management, it's because you can't perform the function of the organization you're in anymore. But 2, when she was a nurse, she was a pediatric nurse. I'm not a kid anymore. I'm not on Dr. Mangle's table with Jerry doing a sucker punch on me with the syringe. So, but I went with it, and she set me down in the chair, and she was going to go in my left arm, and I turned to the right because I can't watch the needle go in. So I feel the needle go in, and I hear a noise that goes, psst, and I'm in horror. There's pain in my arm, obviously. And then she goes, "Oh, dear God." I'm like, what happened? And I'm still looking to the right. She goes, "Well, your vein blew." I'm like, what? How? What does that mean? She's like, "Well, you're obviously dehydrated," which I don't think I was. I drank a lot of water the night before, the morning of. She's like, "Yeah, this happens all the time when people are dehydrated. No big deal." Have you ever heard of a vein blowing? No, me neither. She goes, "You're going to have a nasty bruise from this." So she pulls the needle out and puts a bunch of gauze. She's like, "Here, put a lot of pressure on this." So I hold it, and then she...
So you don't bleed
so I don't bleed to death, so I don't bleed out right there on the campus clinic. So then she's like, well, why don't we try your other arm? So she looks at my other arm. She's like, oh, you have terrible veins, which hurts a little bit. You know, I always thought I had fine veins, maybe not the biggest veins, but certainly enough to get the job done. So she has me turn to the left, and she goes to my right arm, and she's like, yeah, none of the veins in your arm are going to work. So she goes for my hand, and I'm looking to the left, and she sticks the needle in my hand, and guess what sound I hear? No, I hear, and I'm like, oh my God. She's like, I can't believe this. What are the odds? This vein blew too. So she's like, you know what? We should stop for today. She schedules an appointment for me to come in on Wednesday when the nurses are going to be there. So I come in on Wednesday. I'm all black and blue in my left elbow, on my right hand, and a little bit hesitant and nervous, to be honest with you. So I go in on Wednesday, and the first nurse looks at my left arm. She's like, we're going to leave that alone because I just had this gnarly yellow, black, purple bruise, just disgusting. So she goes to my right arm and sticks the vein in, or sticks the needle in the vein, and I feel it go in, and I'm like, okay, we're doing this. And then she goes, oh God, you're a roller. I'm like, what? What is a roller? She's like, first of all, you have great veins. So that office manager lied to me. She goes, but sometimes people have veins that when you try and stick them, they roll. She goes, so here, we're going to take the needle out. She took the needle out, and like no blood came out. It was just a hole in my skin, which is kind of gross. So then she calls her buddy nurse over, and she's like, we got this down. If one of us can't get somebody, the other one can. It just always works out that way. So at this point, I have a giant bruise in my left elbow. I've got a big bruise on my right hand, and now I've got a bloodless hole in my right elbow. So she goes, well, here, let's just go halfway down the forearm here. And she finds a vein. Again, comments on my lovely veins. She goes, this is going to work great. So they put a needle, good Lord, in my vein, right arm. I'm turned to the left. And then I hear them talking to each other, and she's like, okay, good. There we go. There's some, well, no, it's not. I mean, there's a drop, but that's not enough. Here, let's move it around. So I can hear and feel the needle moving around in the vein in my right arm. And she's like, yeah, maybe if we stick over here, let's go here. And all of a sudden, I'm back in 11th grade. And I'm seeing stars, and everything's turning blue and black. And I'm like, oh God, you got to stop, which is the second instance I've had in that clinic where I've had to tell somebody, oh God, you got to stop. So they have me start breathing. They push my head down between my legs. They get out the cold compress, put it on me. I get myself back under control. They're like, you know what? You need to come in next week and have John take care of it for you. I went ahead and set up the appointment, but I will tell you that today I called my doctor's office and said, hey, I've had a horrible experience with the clinic where I work. Is there any place else I can go? You can come in here. We'll take your blood here. So I'm going to go ahead and go in to my doctor's office and pray to the God of folks that are scared of needles that they can get that blood out of me. And if they can't, then my only hope is that Elizabeth Holmes can get Theranos going again, and they can give me a finger prick and get this taken care of. Well, that does it for this edition of I've Got Something to Say. I'm Chris Whiting. Thank you, as always, for tuning in and listening. Big thanks, of course, to the folks at KCTK Radio. Proud to be a part of their fine lineup of programming. Check out all their podcasts. They're fantastic. I'll talk to you next time.